David McCarthy, good morning to you. How are things?
Good morning, Keith.
Thanks indeed for joining us today on the programme. I'll just bring this one into you there if you don't mind. Now, I see, or I believe, is it true that KBC Bank are targeting Bank of Ireland current account customers?
It is a very unusual situation. Apparently, it turns out that when Bank of Ireland was bailed out, part of its restructuring with the EU was to agree to allow external banks of a certain size to access their customer base for what they call customer mobility. This is believed to be the only bank in Europe where this was agreed as part of their restructuring.
So go back, who agreed that?
The EU. It was a condition of their bailout at the time. And apparently what's happened is that they've allowed KBC to access 350,000 of their customers to mail them for current accounts. Now, KBC do not get the, and I have to stress this, do not get the customer information. It's done through an independent mailing company. So KBC don't have that information. But it's a marketing tool. So effectively KBC then will be marketing Bank of Ireland customers for current accounts, and it's only for current accounts.
But the bank themselves have to hand over the information?
Yeah, it was part of the restructuring plan for the EU, and it's something I wasn't aware of, and I don't think a lot of people were aware of at the time when it happened. So they're facilitating
a competitor, that's
Yeah, it is, and it's because apparently of a Bank of Ireland's size in the market, they put this condition in to try and encourage competition, and it's called a customer mobility measure that was added in as part of their bailout. Very unusual.
Some of the stuff that comes out of Europe, I scratch my head on.
Well, yeah, I mean,
what about the stability of the jobs in Bank of Ireland?
One bank being allowed to market another bank's customers, you know.
Doesn't make sense to me, Dave. We have somebody on the line who had €10,000 to invest over 5 years. What would you recommend?
If you're not prepared to take risks, there are a few capital guaranteed options out there for 5 years. But if you are prepared to take a risk, there are a number of others. It's hard for me to mention one particular product over another for that listener. But if they want to contact me, I can give them some more information.
Okay, and now somebody else has a variable mortgage. They're paying an interest rate of 4.5%. Why is this so high when compared to interest rates people on trackers are paying?
This is a very interesting issue because basically people who are on variable mortgages are being fleeced by the banks. Variable mortgages are at the behest in terms of the interest rate of the bank and how they increase or decrease them. And they are paying way above the odds. The banks maintain us to do with cost of funds and all this stuff. Look, the bottom line is this is an opportunity for them to make a margin on these loans well above the tracker rate, and they're doing so. And really, I think it's down to the central bank to start really talking to the banks about reducing these rates because it's punitive and it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Okay, somebody has sent in a text in relation to the repayment to banks of loans, so I'll have to give you that off air if you don't mind. It's very complicated. If you could deal with it next week, would be good. And Keith, I have a personal pension for the last 20 years, never made any changes. Is this something that I should get reviewed?
Keith, you would be surprised and shocked at the number of people who take out a pension and never review it. They just continue. They may review their premiums, but they never review how it's invested. And they just continue on for decades. And you may end up with a fund that is a dinosaur, in my opinion. Anybody who's a personal pension plan or a director's pension plan should have it reviewed and how it's invested. Not to mind the premium every 5 or 6 years. And it's shocking the number of people who just continue on willy-nilly and at the end of the day end up with a situation where it's not performing at anything like the level that they expect. Just one other thing, Keith. We had a listener on this morning who has Vodafone shares, and very briefly the question was they didn't realise they were getting new shares. How do they sell them? If you want to sell your new Vodafone shares that you got, there's two options. If you have what's called a share account, which means you didn't get a share certificate, you have to go back through Computershare who handle this, and they will arrange to sell it. If you got share certificates, you could have to go through a stockbroker to sell the shares, very simply.
All right, Dave, thanks today for joining us in association with the Bank of Ireland. Dave McCarthy, thank you indeed for joining us today. You can call Dave McCarthy on 0911 566 022.